Well, let's take a look at this one now. A number of panel discussions will be taking place today as the 15th BRICS Summit continues in Sandton. Let's take you back now to my co-host, Aldrin Sampear, who is at the Media Center at the Sandton Convention Center. He is, of course, with SABC News International Editor Sophie, Mokoena, as well as Mzwandile, Mbeje, SABC News Political Editor. How are things going there, Aldrin?
Well, yes, we continue our coverage of the 15th BRICS Summit. We're going to be showing you visuals now for the photo opportunity that's going to be taking place with the heads of state from the BRICS member states. They have arrived here at the convention center where the summit is underway. Earlier on, we saw the president of China, that is Xi Jinping, and then earlier on we also saw the president of China, Xi Jinping, as well as the president of Brazil, Lula da Silva, arriving here at the convention center. So a bit later on, what you will see exactly at that point that was demonstrated a bit earlier on, that's where the photo op will be taking place, and that is a photo opportunity of the 5 heads of state from the BRICS member state. As you've indicated, our international news editor, Sophie Mokoena, as well as Mzwandile, Mbeje, our politics editor here at SABC News, is joining us for the conversation. Good morning. Thank you so much for making time for us. I don't know if the sense that you get from the summit as well is that multilateralism really plays a key role. Just quickly looking at the theme, it says partnership of mutually accelerated growth, sustainable development, and inclusive multilateralism. And that emphasis for me also coming at a crucial time where some people have given up on multilateralism, Sophie.
Yes, indeed. You'd recall that it was the Secretary General of the United Nations, the real man who is responsible to ensuring that the countries, member countries of the United Nations, do work together and they find solutions in terms of problems facing the globe. But he is the one who uttered the words that the world is drifting apart, and therefore some countries, powerful countries, taking unilateral positions that are to the detriment of the entire globe. And therefore I think these leaders here, with this opportunity, they will have to look at that as well in terms of what role they can play to ensure that that multilateralism is revived, and not only revived in terms of talks, but in terms of implementation. And you have these two in the Security Council who can push for that, that is China and Russia, and the issue of the veto power that's being abused at times. It's not abused because that's what's leading to this fractured world body.
And also the call then, Mzwandile, for South Africa to play a much bigger role when it comes to global affairs. During the state visit as well, Xi Jinping yesterday mentioning that we support South Africa playing a more important role when it comes to global affairs, and of course the push for the African Union to be part of the G20, and the G20 taking place next month in India.
Absolutely. It makes sense, Aldrin. In fact, South Africa has been very prominent in the affairs of the world. The fact of the matter is that we have the G20 and we're the only African country represented there. So that is the kind of a prominent role you are speaking about. And even in that G20, if you look at how it's structured, it's actually 19 countries plus EU, which then broadens it. So then it makes sense that as much as South Africa is there, if the AU were to be part of that, so somehow some of the African countries will then be represented. So it will really make sense. But of course, traditionally from where we come in terms of the country and our democracy, we've always been leading in terms of pushing the African agenda. So this role that you are speaking about, you look at, I mean, we are part of BRICS now, and it's quite prominent. We are part of G20. So at some point we do get invited to G7. Well, not all the time, but sometimes we do get invited there, because those are international organizations. Those are organizations that are very important in speaking about global issues. So when you see an event like this nature happening in South Africa, and the kind of the the structure it will create post this summit tells you the centrality of South Africa, as you've said.
Sophie, yesterday you said the eyes of the world are on Africa. What would the members of the G20 be looking at and what the outcomes of this conference would be, also considering that you have Vladimir Putin, who argued yesterday that the sanctions are illegitimate?
Well, I think they are watching. They are watching, not only the G20, including the G7. They are watching. And therefore, particularly the participation of African heads of state and government will be crucial, because they will be looking at whether BRICS is able to strengthen its relationship with this important region. Secondly, they will be looking at South Africa, their own member, in relation to G20. What message is South Africa communicating? And the last thing for me, it will be South Africa and these leaders. Are they pushing the African development blueprint, including the African Continental Free Trade Area and NEPAD, vigorously, so that they themselves can take Africa seriously? And therefore, they will be watching, and they will be watching and listening in terms of statements and the position of African leaders who will be here.
And with the retreat and the president mentioning this yesterday, of course, will be the discussion around the expansion of BRICS. Does it really pose a threat that there are so many countries that are interested in the BRICS development, new development bank, and does it position itself as an alternative to the global financial institutions that we already have? And we heard yesterday as well that the president is calling for some reforms in those institutions.
Well, it cannot be a competitor to these institutions that we have, IMF, your World Bank. What it has to do is to complement these institutions. Of course, in terms of how it conducts its business, it will be different. For example, with IMF and World Bank, clearly using the dollar will continue. But with this bank, the development bank or BRICS bank, there's now flexibility in terms of doing business with national currencies. And yesterday we saw a demonstration of that when the president of BRICS Bank made an announcement in terms of the loan that was given to South Africa in building of water infrastructure in relation to Lesotho Highlands Development Project. It is in rands, not dollars. Secondly, I spoke to the Minister of Finance yesterday. I wanted clarity on the de-dollarization. What does it mean? Does it mean launching of a BRICS currency or what? Then it was clear that it's not about a launch of a currency, but ensuring that you take a formal position in terms of doing business with your own national currencies. And therefore, de-dollarization is already happening, because now you are not tied to giving loans and making payments in relation to the dollar. Yeah. But you also have to come up with a better payment system. You know that SWIFT is currently giving Russia problems in terms of clearing payments that are supposed to go to Russia due to the sanctions. So these are some of the issues that you'll have to engage with.
And on that issue around the de-dollarization, Mzwandile, what are the conversations that you are hearing that are taking place in the political space when it comes to de-dollarization? Earlier on, I was speaking to the Minister of Agriculture as well and asking her, what's the business case for an expansion of BRICS, for instance, when on the other hand you have, for instance, the Prime Minister of India saying that you can't just expand for the sake of expanding. There must be conditions that are attached to that.
Absolutely. And in fact, when you're talking about the de-dollarization, I think India itself, together with is it Russia?
Russia.
With Russia.
Oil.
Yes, with oil. So they're already using...
Including China.
China. They're already using their own currencies. So as you were correctly saying it, it's not a question of saying we are dumping the dollar, but all you are doing is that, yes, it's fine, we can use the dollar, but we have an alternative of also using this currency. So which then tells you it then doesn't become the preeminent currency going forward. So what you are hearing is that the Russian president was very clear. He actually said there is already a decrease in the use of the dollar. I think he mentioned something like 26%. So amongst the BRICS members, so that conversation is not only a conversation now. You can see some action is taking place. The question is, how quick will this happen? Especially because you also want to admit other members, and I don't think even if they take a principled decision of accepting more members, I don't think they'll just accept everyone. It's probably going to be a structured way of saying, so you come in under these conditions. I mean, you know, Brazil itself as well is, okay, we are not saying people should not be accepted, but perhaps we need to have a better way. Same as India.
Science and technology quickly. Yesterday, the Minister of Higher Education and Science signing a number of memorandum with China as part of the state visit. Speak to us about the importance of science and technology, also during a time where, as the President again yesterday warned, we have the agricultural sector, which employs a lot of people in South Africa, we know. However, though, the threat that poses, this is now science and technology, when it comes to employment, poverty, as well as inequality.
If there is one thing that South Africa needs to learn, and learn fast, is to upskill our people, because there is a lot that we can learn from these other these other BRICS countries, and then of course in other African countries. I think Rwanda is a case in point when it comes to these issues. India spoke, Aldrin, about the digital technology, digital skills, and said we can share with you, BRICS members. If then we invest in subjects like science and technology, which are the subjects of the future, because the economy is now, the economy of the future is actually anchored around those. So if then you tap into that, you invest hugely, you are bound to have a much better country. You are bound to have children who will be so well versed about creating solutions. Right now, it's more about consumption instead of creation.
And two of those BRICS countries, just quickly in closing, Sophie, is you have China, you have India, that plays quite an important role when it comes to the automotive industry. And now, for instance, a big story that we are watching this afternoon is the Chandrayaan 3 spacecraft that is expected to land on the moon later on today. But the expectation is that if it lands on the south pole of the moon, it will be a game changer. And mind you, this is India, which is a member of BRICS.
Yes, yesterday the President spoke about the digital economy and also issues of improving and upscaling the competency in terms of technology. The President of China was even more clearer, saying that when countries are embarking on innovation and science, don't stop them and don't be scared. I think he was taking a swipe on the US because there's this trade war and it relates to technology. That is why South Africa must continue to engage these countries, because we must have same capacity. We do have our SK, the satellite here, in terms of collecting data. So it doesn't mean we can't collaborate with these countries on issues related to space, and also to ensure that on automobile we are able to start this product on the continent. South Africa has signed an agreement with China. That's a big story for me, I think, and we're missing that story. In terms of China has made a commitment for the first time that they are willing to assist South Africa to be able to improve in industrial capacity and manufacturing. In other words, where you have these mineral resources, they are prepared to come here and help South Africa to start the manufacturing hub. Where you have platinum, these converters that you use for cars, you must produce them here and fully finished car. If you have lithium, these batteries for renewable, you do it there at the lithium mining, not send lithium to another country where these batteries are manufactured. If you have cobalt, like DRC, do a cell phone in the DRC. Don't take cobalt to China where you have these cell phones. And when it comes back, it's very expensive. So I think you are correct. Technology is the future. But you are correct also, you must ensure that on artificial intelligence, it doesn't lead to job losses, because now the robots are doing the job.
Thank you so much. That is Sophie Mokoena, as well as Mzwandile Mbeje, SABC Political News Editor, as well as International News Editor. Any moment from now, we will see the various heads of state who are the member states, who are from countries that are member states of BRICS, take to the podium for that all-important family opt. And then a bit later on, we'll hear their opening remarks of the summit. And there is an anticipated press briefing that will happen a bit later on with the leaders of BRICS. So we will be bringing you that live from the Sandton Convention Center right here in Johannesburg.